Hello and welcome back to the Fantasy Den, sponsored by the AAW Network. The show which we talk about all about fantasy. We talk about a variety of different things from the different types of fantasy that we have, different players, and just everything and anything fantasy. Join with me today. We have two of our resident guests or co-hosts, I suppose, is how we should probably be talking it. Is first we have our esteemed 49ers representative in Gary. Gary,
Oh,
how are we
you
doing?
just said through gritted teeth there. Well done, Sam. Yeah, good to see you, mate. Good to see you back.
Good. And the other co-host, someone who will be flipping in and out, is
Wonder
um,
where you were going with that.
our wonderful producer in and Lions representative Fletch. How are we doing?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Very much looking forward to this one. Been eager beaver to get back to this, to talking fantasy. Um, got the rope, the change, the whips right there. So whatever fantasy we want to talk about, I'm ready.
Good. Good. We're not going to talk about that type of fantasy today, though.
All right, see you later.
It is pre-watershed, so yeah, you can leave now. Yeah.
However, we are going to talk about all things fantasy football. And the thing that we're going to look at today, because we've not been, obviously, you'll have seen we released the first episode and then we've not done a couple since. I've been on holiday.
I mean,
And
who organised that? Release something and then bugger off on holiday. That's never been done before.
that's, I'm gonna point that towards someone else, not my fault. um, he's slowly, if anyone can see him, just slowly creeping away. But no, we're back. We've had a few weeks now. Coming into week 4. We've obviously had the opening game of week 4 with the
NFC West
Seattle
arm wrestle.
Seahawks. Yeah, the Seattle Seahawks beating the Arizona Cardinals, the resident little brother of the NFC West, getting beaten again.
Again.
Um, but you know, interesting game to start with, and always a tight match between the NFC West teams. There's a few things that I think we should look at. I think probably the most important things we start with the news. Looking forward to this week, obviously. The last few weeks have probably seen quite a fair number of high-profile injuries. Obviously, we lost Joe Burrow to another injury. We lost
CD Lamb.
CD Lamb to he's obviously got a little bit of an injury, and we've also lost Najee Harris as well. So obviously he's now on IR and is out for the year, I believe, with the torn
So,
Achilles.
yeah. Austin Eckler
Um,
went as well, didn't he?
yeah, Austin Eckler is off along with the other. There's obviously, I mean, we can come on to the other ones, but those are sort of, I suppose, the high profile ones that we've seen over the last few years. Obviously, Aaron Jones, probably another one worth mentioning with his
Yeah.
hamstring. He's on IR.
Yeah,
Um,
the CD Lamb and I think the Joe Burrow one have probably killed a number of fantasy football teams in the same way that McCaffrey did last year when, it's just a sore Achilles, just a sore Achilles. You don't see him for 9 weeks. Everyone drafted him 101 and ruined their year. I think Burrow and Lamb going has really decimated a number of teams in the fantasy
yeah,
football
especially if
landscape.
that could arguably people's top two picks
Could have been
gone.
a stack. Somebody could have stacked them if they were lucky enough, and then just looking at it, just going, oh, well, now what?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a number. Obviously, we've had a fair few number of reports come through over the last, I would say, few hours in terms of players out. Obviously, I would say
God,
probably some of the big ones that we've seen this week. Jaden Daniels is going to be missing another week, and so is Terry McLaurin. So that's
yeah.
obviously the Commanders with their star QB and their star wide receiver out, along with all the other injuries they already have.
JJ
Um,
McCarthy's out as well, isn't he?
JJ McCarthy has also been ruled out for this week. So again, that's another big miss. But we all know what happened last week with Carson Wentz. So if you haven't picked him up, I'd be going and getting him right this second
Get
again
on the
if he's
waiver
still
wire. Why have
available.
you not got him? Yeah.
Yeah, if he's still there, then go and get him. But the likelihood is he's gone.
And
Um,
and just thinking outside the box a little bit this time, we'll probably have to at some point talk about what waiver wires are.
Yes.
At some point we will, yes. if you even have waiver wires, some leagues don't even have them.
Some leagues that you're just done for, aren't you?
Level of chaos. I don't know if either of you two have any other sort of injury updates in terms of players. Obviously, we know that Xavier Worthy is back this week.
He's been given a good to go, hasn't he? Yeah, that just came through. I think. Yeah,
he's been given the good to go. I think it's looking like Devontae Adams is going to play, although he is running with a hamstring injury. It is looking likely he's going to start.
Chuba Howard, I think, is questionable, which is
DeMarcus Robinson's been lifted off the IR, so he's likely potentially going to play for the 49ers in his opening game, potentially, depending if
Marcus, was it suspension or IR?
IR.
Robinson. Who am I thinking was suspended then?
Jordan Addison's been suspended and he's come back off IR.
I thought we had a wide receiver who was doing a suspension.
Maybe it was DeMarcus Robinson, but I know
I thought he was on pup type of stuff, but he wasn't able to play because he was under suspension from his previous contract. Yeah, I think Chuba Howard is questionable, which will be big for the Panthers because they have Chuba Howard and nobody else really. I can't even remember who the backup is. Miles Sanders, maybe.
Miles Sanders. No, he's gone. He's gone,
isn't he? Yeah, so I can't. That shows you who the backup, the running back is for the Panthers. Dowdle? Rico Dowds?
Rico Dowdle, yeah, Rico Dowdle.
Oh, look at that! That was a pull. And then I believe Alec Pierce, the wide receiver who has been doing pretty well with Indiana Jones, he's been ruled out with a concussion. So there's a few players that might be on the fringes of some teams that you might need to be looking at moving around and shifting some of your bench players around.
Yeah. Obviously, I think the biggest news is obviously there's some high-profile quarterbacks out again for another week, which is not ideal. I know that it's definitely hampered my teams with losing Jane Daniels and Joe Burrows. Seems I have a lot of them.
Yeah, those are two that everyone's going to have a lot of, aren't they? If you've got an opportunity, yeah.
I'm pretty sure in one league I have Joe Burrow, JJ McCarthy, and Brock Purdy.
Brock might be going this week, but unlikely.
Yeah, he's
unlikely.
Been elevated. So
he's been elevated. It's unlikely, but then it looked like Mac Jones busted, Buggett had a pretty tough knee at the end of the game last week, though. So it could be interesting to see on that front.
I just know I'm getting caned in a lot of leagues.
Don't look, Sam. Don't look. It's painful.
Yeah.
We like to talk about fantasy football. Doesn't necessarily mean we know how to play it.
Yeah, I'm having to play Marvin Mims this week instead of Terry McLaurin, so I could do with him having a big week.
Yeah, I should have. Broncos.
But of course, injuries part of the game, and you've got to play and you've got to learn fantasy, and obviously that's what your depth and your bench is for, and what the waiver wire is for. So there's plenty of availability out there, and obviously we'll talk about a few that can potentially be out there. But I wanted to pose a question to both of you because this was something that obviously we'll come on to talk about players and sitting and dropping this week or who not to start. There is one wide receiver who is in the top 20 for targets, but has less than a 30% reception rate. Can you name that wide receiver? And he is a wide receiver. He's not a tight end or a running back. He's a wide receiver.
NHJ.
Nope. There is someone who is lower. So
dropped a lot.
To give you an idea, these are all players in the top 20 for targets. They all have 25 or more targets. So someone has a below 30% reception rate or catch rate.
Catch rate. Oh, this sounds like a Charger. It sounds like Keenan Allen from every year that he's ever played. But I think he's actually catching things now, isn't he? Quinton Johnson was also. No, it's not him.
I'm thinking of someone who just, I don't know. You will just kind of find in moments.
It's Brian Thomas, isn't it? Brian Thomas Jr.
Thomas Jr. Yes.
Yes, of course it is.
7 catches from 25 targets this year,
Oh,
a 28% catch rate.
he is another one whose teams are suffering for him, because I think after his year last year, he was drafted very highly in a lot of leagues, and I don't know if this is second year syndrome or if there's something deeper going on at the Jaguars, because there seems to be the effort involved in some of his plays has been called into question, I think. And yeah, some of the throws have been absolutely horrendous hospital throws. You got to put some of those on T-Law, but some of them are drops that should be bringing in as a professional wide receiver.
Yeah.
The other one that I have related to wide receivers as well is, and this is more just to see how much you're paying attention.
We're in
Who
trouble
has
now,
the most
Fletch.
touchdowns wide receivers in the NFL currently? There's 3, so if you can name one of them.
Say that again, sorry. Kind of.
Who has, out of all the wide receivers in the league so far, got the most receiving touchdowns in the league? There's 3 of them, so you just have to name one.
Redundancy?
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yes. If you name all 3, then great.
I think Redundancy's got to be in there after that crazy Giants game.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
it's going to be somebody like Pittman Jr. or something at the
Sorry,
Colts.
it's 4,
Isn't it?
not 5. It's 4. 4 touchdowns. But it is Amon-Ra and Rome Odunze. There's one other.
It's not Pittman then.
I believe it's 5 touchdowns that they've caught between them. Is it 4?
It's just 4. All of them have caught 4 touchdowns each.
Yeah.
It's not Trey Tucker, is it, or somebody? It is
Trey Tucker.
It's Trey Tucker at the Raiders, isn't it? It's like
Trey Tucker. That's why I was hoping. I didn't know if he'd clocked on with it, but yeah. And obviously, the one thing with Trey Tucker in terms of wide receivers, in terms of a fantasy perspective, he is currently sitting at number 3 in the wide receiver position.
I mean, nobody would have picked that because everyone looked at Raiders and thought Jacoby Myers, tight end heavy. There's nobody else that's going to get the ball, but then Geno's gone in there and maybe spreading it about a bit more.
Well, that's one thing you could say about Geno though, is he's, for all of the things, he's got an arm on him that he can spray it about just a bit. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You said there's one more,
but I made you say I'm surprised it's not Myers. I think everyone's probably surprised it's not Myers or Bowers.
Yeah,
but
in a standard PPR league, Trey Tucker is currently 5th, but that's still even to be a top 5 wide receiver at this point after 3 weeks, given the fact that he was probably not even expected to be.
He's probably undrafted in a lot of leagues, I should imagine, or late round flyers of it's round 22. Trey Tucker will do, because we need to play it.
But yeah,
so that's Fletch, look at that. We nailed the trivia this week.
Yeah,
feeling pretty good. We should hang up now.
Just a little bit of wide receiver trivia, obviously with Andy not being here just yet, to provide us with some wide receiver bits of information. So I just thought I'd throw those in, and just because I was looking at them myself, because I have a headache of wide receiver issues this week, so that's why I was looking at them.
Who are you looking for? Yeah, exactly.
Great, yeah. So why don't we start with? Obviously, I know we've talked about a few injuries and that, and this isn't going to be a particularly long episode. It's still obviously new into the season, and when we have a bit more time and availability, we might be able to hash out a few more bigger episodes. We're not shy in having long.
We're not shy in having 3-hour long in deep dives, are we? Yeah.
No, so it'd be nice to have a little short, snappy one. So, what we'll do is we'll run straight into the starters and drops for this week. We'll start with running backs.
Well, throw me right in at the deep end, why don't you?
Yes.
Fine. So, obviously, this week there are a number of big matchups. There are a number of teams that are looking to bounce back get back on winning ways. We've talked about some of the bigger injuries there that are probably going to lead different ways in terms of running back situations. So my starting team three, I'm going to start with my starters. If you're sitting on the bench, you've got to put J.K. Dobbins into starting against the Giants, just because the Giants are really bad, just really bad. They're going to run all over him, and J.K. Dobbins seems to have taken over that, and make sure. Sorry, hang on. J.K. Dobbins is not playing the Giants. He's playing. Getting confused here. J.K. Dobbins. He's definitely a starter against the Bengals, but he has started to take over the number one running back at the Broncos. I was thinking of Amari and Hampton. He has to be starting this week against the Giants. Obviously, a horrendous injury for the starting rank at the Chargers, who's gone down, whose name is now escaping me. I'm getting confused with J.K. Dobbins and the guy who don't Chargers.
Najee Harris.
It's Najee Harris's ankle or Achilles, who's kind of gone pop. Therefore, Hampton was probably always going to take the RB1 position after a certain period of time this season. Probably been elevated a little bit more, and for a game to get in and take over the number one running back position for a team that's doing really well, the Chargers, to come up against a Giants team who is porous, to say the least. There's your ultimate starter there, and this one might be a bit of a weird one, but I'd be starting Pacheco this week, even though they're going up against the Ravens defense. That Ravens defense for the first 3 weeks have actually been the worst run defense in the league. So although it's an odd one and that's a massive big matchup, I'd be looking at starting Pacheco for this week. In terms of who you're sitting, sorry, Fletch, you've got to be looking at single either Gibbs or Montgomery. If you've got one or other of those ones, you're going up against that Browns defense, which is elite, and has been stuffing everybody left, right, center, and up and down. So if you're looking for scoring points, yes, you'll probably still get Gibbs or Montgomery getting carries, and the volume will be there because you won't get away from the run game. Detroit, they'll still need to use it and lean on it, but you're probably not going to get any value for it. Likewise, you're going to be looking at putting Etienne on the bench against 49ers defense. You're probably unlikely to get a lot of ground and a lot of effort out of that one. The third one, as I'm sitting this week, was probably... I was going to say Hubbard against the Patriots, but now it sounds like he might not be playing anyway, so that's going to kind of be a bit of a cheat code. Who am I sitting?
I think he'd probably still be one that you want to sit, even if he's available.
Yeah.
Just because he's probably going to be, even with a knock, if he does play, he's probably going to see less
on
reps.
The snap count. He's going to be on the snap count. It's either that or you're sitting Bill at the Commanders, because although we've just said Daniels is out, McLaurin is out, Mariota's in, and Mariota does tend to be a bit more flexible and a bit more on his feet. So although Krosky Hill, Bill, whatever his name is, Bill. The double-barreled Commanders running back is another one that I would potentially be sitting this week because of the Falcons defense, who really need to step up and come back into it. And with Mariota there, it just looks to me like a bit of a trap.
Yeah, I think it's Krosky Merritt. I think is his name.
That's the one. Those are my little things to keep an eye on during the week during this one. But I think those are probably sensible ways to bulk to some of your scoring. If you're struggling with some of the injuries that have come around, you may find these ones help to soften the blow a little bit.
Yeah.
Thank you. Fletch, we'll jump over to you for quarterbacks.
Start whoever's fit.
First off, go with people who start. Like, there's a really good place to go. I think there's a couple for me that I'm really looking at in terms of. Well, again, it's not the longest list of quarterbacks that are available. One of my ones to start would be Caleb Williams right now. The showout he had against the Cowboys at last weekend was fantastic. Earned him 29.12 points on at least in the sleeper league where I've got him. It's a standard PPR league where you get 0.04 points per yard and all that sort of stuff. 4 points a touchdown. He earned 29 points, which is, and I expect him to not only step up anyway and continue that run of getting into form, but he goes up against the Raiders this weekend, which should be. It won't be a walk in the park, but he will. I believe he'll find some success against him. And then you've also got Bo Nix is another one I'm quite excited about this weekend, mainly because of the matchup he's on. He's obviously had a slow start to the season so far, one that we didn't quite expect. He's the one that seems to be one of the cute quarterbacks who's having a bit of a sophomore slump, or at least it looks like it at the start of the season. But you're going up against Cincinnati Bengals defense that's allowed 21 points to quarterbacks in the last 2 weeks. I believe that's the stat I've got in front of me, depending on the league that you're in. Although I did go and fact check it, and it doesn't look like Carson Wentz got that many. However, this is the stat that I've got in front of me says 21 points over the last 2 weeks. I know they definitely put up that much against Trevor Lawrence had that many against them a couple of weeks ago. He notoriously
Trevor
has.
Lawrence is that great this year.
Yeah, Bo Nix is notoriously good at home, particularly from fantasy standpoints, and that's a Bengals defense that, as we have seen last week, is very much there for the taking. The only other one I'm kind of wondering about is potentially Justin Herbert. As we said, with Najee Harris going out, Amarian Hampton will get a lot of the carries, but that may also fall on some of the work to be done with his legs to Justin Herbert. That obviously gets you more points. But also, I imagine them to hopefully get a bit further going in the passing game, as long as that Giants defensive line doesn't get to him too much. I did, and Jim Harbaugh seems to be trusting Justin Herbert with his arm, which is always nice to see.
Yeah.
In terms of sitters this week, I'm actually impressed with the apology from Gary, but I'm also going to apologise to myself here if we're apologising to Lions fans. Jared Goff is my sitter. Number one, because he isn't a fantasy football friendly quarterback, unless you're looking for value options down the line or someone to bring in when your QB1 is actually on bye week. But you're against a Cleveland defense that's tough, that's strong. I would imagine I would imagine he would be struggling, having to play a lot of the short game, not racking up particularly too many yards in terms of that, maybe not getting too many passing touchdowns through the air. And again, just the way the Lions like to play, I can see lots of yards on the ground, but not as many through the air. And my other sitter my other sitters for the week would be Daniel Jones, because you're welcome, Sam. That LA Rams defense is going to be nasty, as we said yesterday on Heard of the Line. That's the first real defense he's coming up against this season, and I would err on the side of caution always against quarterbacks that come under that, particularly with the new franchise, as well as he's played so far this year. And finally, Dak Prescott going up against that Green Bay defense. Do I need to say more? Do I need to say more? Sadly, about that defense in Green Bay. Dak notoriously struggled, and I would look for Micah Parsons to be ruining Dak Prescott's day, unless
If you're in an IDP league, you're putting Micah Parsons in for this league because he is going to cause no end of havoc against his old team.
On the proviso that he doesn't get a sack in the first quarter and then do some sort of gesture to Jerry Jones that gets him kicked out the game. And if he doesn't do that, I'd expect. I'm not trusting Dak Prescott this weekend, as good as he's also been this year.
Great. That's some good, interesting picks. Ironically, obviously we'll come on to my picks on tight ends, and ironically, there's one player that obviously with the mention of Dak Prescott, one of my starters this week is in fact Jake Ferguson. Yeah. Now, the reason why I've chosen Jake Ferguson, I know that in most leagues he probably is going to be starting. He's the second most fantasy points for a tight end in an all PPR league. but
Packers are
the
notoriously
Packers,
bad against tight ends, aren't they?
yeah, they've given up the most yards to tight ends this year in 215 yards. So if Jake Ferguson is one of your backup tight ends to the likes of a McBride or one of the big ones, well done for getting him in that sense, because a brilliant backup. But I would be starting him in a flex position because he is going to be scoring. If anyone's going to be scoring on that Dallas team, I think it's probably going to be him this week.
Yeah.
So I would probably throw him in a flex position in that sense. On the flip side, someone that I would probably avoid is probably Zach Ertz this week. Again, Atlanta are pretty good against the tight end position. I think they've not given up too many points to tight ends this year, and obviously with the issues that are happening in that Commanders team, yes, they're probably going to want to play it to Zach Ertz, which means that he's likely going to be targeted by defensive players a lot more, which could see him, lose out on a few potential points.
I agree with that one, especially on the Zach Ertz. When you look at it, Mariota's not notoriously known for hitting tight ends, and then you look around that group and you go, well, McLaurin's out. Who else is there? Debo doesn't look.
It's basically going to be Debo, isn't it?
It's going to be Debo or Zach Ertz, and so you don't need to worry too much. You'll just be double teaming those two and leave whoever the third, fourth wide receiver is.
Yeah,
you'll be struggling to even name who they are. Isn't Zacharias Brown or some Diami Brown? Is he still there? Anyway, don't know
Noah Brown and Chris Moore are the other wide receivers in that team. So yeah, and maybe Luke McCaffrey might get a run out. We don't know. But that's another tight end that I would go for, again, someone that's probably been seen as a second tight end in most leagues, or maybe a deeper first tight end, would be Dalton Kincaid going up against the Saints. I think he seems to have come back into the fold a bit more this year than he did last year. He seemed to be kind of left out in the cold a bit, and he's now, he's put up 2 weeks where he's put up over 10 points. So he would be another one that I'd be looking at to pick up a fair few points this week. And then my final non-starter would probably be I would just say any Pittsburgh Steeler tight end this week. Just don't pick them. I think that
they're traveling.
Yeah, they're in a foreign country, and I think we still don't know. I mean, Johnny Smith looks like he may not make the game, and I think Frymouth hasn't really been a favoured target of Rodgers this year. So I would just avoid all Pittsburgh Steelers. The other one that I would probably, I suppose, paddling off the back of Fletcher's comments around not picking Goff, I would probably, you will probably start him anyway, but I would start Sam Laporta. I know that obviously that Cleveland Browns defense is nasty and is very good, but I think he's going to see a lot of receptions, short yard receptions. So I think he'll get a lot of targets, which could then mean that he picks up a lot of points, especially if you have it if you're in a tight end premium league where they're getting double points or even 1.5 points for every reception. I'd be looking at making sure that he's in my team. But the only thing with that is most people probably have Sam Laporta as their starting tight end every single week. So, I would probably have him. And then finally, I suppose we've not got Andy here, and obviously he's not sent any through. Just with him, what is he at? Is it a football game tonight? Is it?
Yes.
Rugby game? I think it's a Bath game, didn't
Yeah, one of them.
Yeah. But either way, has anyone got any particular choices or flyers for wide receivers this week?
Definitely starting Ibuka. I mean, you would normally be starting him, as a rookie. I always thought I was high on him from the outset, but the way that Mike Evans is now down with a hamstring. I think Godwin is questionable, etc., etc. He's stepped into that role, and I think Baker and him are starting to get a bit of a connection. Yes, they're up against Philly, but I think that may end up being a bit of a shootout, and the Bucks may need to put it in the air, and they don't really have another one. So Booker is a sneaky shout there, I think.
Yeah, in similar vein, not Terry McLaurin, Deebo Samuel, because of Terry McLaurin being out, I get him seeing quite a few targets that Terry McLaurin would have seen, and he's been, to my knowledge, I don't think I have Deebo Samuel in any league, so I haven't paid too much attention to him, but I believe from what I've seen, he's been quite a reliable target so far for the Commanders. So in that vein,
and as a flyer, seeing as he's only just been given the clear green light, and if you've got Worthy sitting on your bench, why would you not put him in as a flyer in this one? Again, although I think that Baltimore defense will eventually come good, they've not been that great against either run or pass this season. I've got a feeling now that Worthy's there, Mahomes may want to just every now and again use him, and so you might get a few flyers there as well.
Be interesting to see how they use him, because he is going to, obviously he's the deep ball threat, and one of the things we've not been able to see much of Mahomes yet is being able to sort of stretch a defense.
Yeah. He's not had that. He's been missing Tyreek Hill for the last 4 years, hasn't he? Really? So
yeah, he's not had that.
Now he's got one.
Threat.
So
and that's obviously, I think once we may see a bit of a change in the Chiefs once they get Worthy and Rice back in, because I think that those two as a pairing could be quite dangerous. Obviously, we've not been able to see it yet, but that could be an interesting.
It gives them the option to stretch a defense that they've not had for a while. So it'd be interesting how that pans out. I'd be binning off. Volume wise, he's doing great, but I'd be sitting Olave at the moment. QB plays not been great. I think he's been picking up a bundle of targets, but they've been 2 or 3 yard dink dunks type things. He's not scoring massively in terms of yardage or anything else. And overarchingly, that Saints team is just bad.
He's currently set at wide receiver 25, and he does have the most targets in the NFL this year.
Yeah,
with 37.
Ouch.
But he has 23 receptions for only 165 yards. So that kind of tells you how well he's actually doing.
Wow, that is painful to read.
Yeah. One of us.
Someone I was going to say someone that I would probably go with, and I have mentioned it on the Hurdle the Line pod that we did yesterday, that should have been released today, was
available on a Sleep at Work network.
It is available on the
underneath the description.
Is a leak. Is it a leak? I can't pronounce his name if I find it.
Alec Hayamar.
Yeah, I would be starting him because, again, with Cam Ward looking to play, it looks like he's going to be starting. He seems to have developed quite a good relationship with Ayamana at the moment. And I think with Ridley, who, just for the record, is the second lowest for reception for catch rates. I think he's at 38%. I think he's out of 21, he's only caught like 8 or something like that. So again, he's pretty low. I think this guy could be the one that will step up. And I think, when we sort of looked at the Titans at the start of the year, when they drafted about 20 wide receivers, it seems like Iron Man has been the one that stuck the most. And I think he's developed quite a good relationship with Ward. So again, I would be picking him. And obviously, if you do go over and listen to the Hurdle Line podcast,
when you go over,
or when you do the previous show, that's where you'll see. Obviously, the pick that I've made is for the Fantasy Game Day app, which obviously, if you do like to do fantasy, which obviously this is a fantasy app, and you do like to do a fantasy pod, and you do like to do a bit of betting, this combines the two and allows you to do both. All you need to do, obviously, is if you go down to the link below, obviously, from what I'm being told from Fletch, is it's now a button below. So
this is a link. The social media stuff's a button.
The social media is a button, but this is a link. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, Link will be in the description. Obviously, we've partnered with Fantasy Game Day, and when you do join, use our code Hurdle without the U, so HRDLE.
Well, there's no hurdle the line without you.
Someone else gets to do it instead of me. And they will give you a £7.50 free bet, and that you can use on one single game week. I think you can use it on multiple games. I've not tried it myself. So you can use it either all in one, which is £7.50 on the 6 o'clock starting, or the 6 o'clock stint games, or you can split it between two, which I think would be £3 each. So you then, obviously, if you win anything, you then have another one.
Well, this week's really fun because obviously, games range from £3 to £25 depending on how frisky you're feeling. Obviously, I had like $1 billion weekend the other weekend, so I'm just money bagged in it here for a few weeks. But this weekend, if
Till
you are
Mrs. Fletch gets hold of it,
she'll never know. I can't. She doesn't even know I've got Fantasy Game Day. She don't know what it is, so she'll never know.
It does now.
let me just open that WhatsApp group that we're in.
You leave Fletch's Frankfurt
Fletch's
bitches
Frau
alone.
lines.
But they do have, like, obviously they have the games where Sunday night football, they have individual games for Sunday night, Monday night, Thursday night football, but they've got an individual game, £3 entry just for the Pittsburgh Steelers versus Minnesota Vikings game in Dublin, which is really, really nice to see that they've added them in. So I might jump in on that one for £3 and
A little flutter.
come at me, lads. Come at me.
A little flutter. Please also, obviously, doing the sensible adult thing, please make sure you gamble responsibly. And if you are struggling, if the fun stops, as the saying goes, please stop gambling. We're not condoning gambling. You have to be 18 or over before you play. There are terms and conditions apply.
No encouraging kids to bet against Fletch.
No, we don't do that. And Fantasy Game Day is great because it's filled a hole that DraftKings DFS has left in the UK market. They've stepped in. It's a small fan run for the fans, by the fans sort of app, and it's taken off leaps and bounds. It's a really good fun app, but make sure you treat it as it's supposed to be. It's a bit of fun. Please don't end up spending. You can easily, if you're that way inclined, you could quite easily get wrapped up and spend £7.50 for 15 different lineups, and we're not trying to encourage that.
Yeah. I've got a question for you, by the way, about fantasy football, and it kind of relates to a topic that we've kind of brought up, just not as two topics. These are amalgamated. It boils off the I say sit Jared Goff, you say start Laporta. And I'd similarly say start Amon-Ra St. Brown because of the state of the defense of the Cleveland Browns. Goff's going to look for easy, quick targets to fire the ball out to. That's almost always Sam Laporta and Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jameson Williams, you're probably not going to get a chance to get the ball over to James.
Yeah, he's not going to develop his routes quickly enough. Yep.
So some of the, unless they get him in on some of those end arounds and all that sort of stuff, which I hope they would do. How do we tackle the balance between looking at a wide receiver that should do well fantasy wise, while the quarterback will not do well fantasy wise? So we're looking at games where, like, because a quarterback puts up 200 yards, that's 8 points. You put up a couple of touchdowns, you can get up to 14, 15 points, which is not a lot. It's a good day statistically for a quarterback, but fantasy wise, it's not. It's not what we want from a quarterback these days. Are we looking at like those games where like it's just they might get 220 yards, and between these two, they're seeing most of the targets, and that's what we're looking? Or do you look at games where the quarterbacks are going to do fantasy wise well?
I tend to, if I'm looking at something in a situation where you've got like Jared Goff, where it's likely he's not going to. He never really scores well on fantasy. He's always sort of in around the 10 mark.
10 to 16 mark is Jared Goff, right? He's in that.
I tend to look at, especially for a game like this, where they're probably going to be on offense a fair bit, but probably not going to be putting up a lot of points. I'm looking at my straight aim for it is who does he target the most? Where does he target it? Because especially in a PPR league, you're looking for receptions. So if Amon-Ra is the guy that he always goes to against tight defenses, or if Sam Laporte is the guy that he always goes to, they're the ones that I'm looking at. Not necessarily for big points. I'd probably be looking at sticking them in one of the flex positions, because they're not going to be ones that are going to score you big points. They're going to be ones that are going to add to those points that you're going to build up throughout. So for me, I tend to look at who, if I'm going into it, I look at who does he target the most? Who's the one that he targets in the short zone passing? And that's what I'm looking at. And so that's why I would always look at a tight end in that situation, because a lot of the time the tight end is the one that's going to be making those short zone catches.
It's usually the safety blanket, isn't it? There's your dump offs to the tight end, 3-4 yards, gets rid of it quickly, as you say. And the benefit with the tight end scenario in that front is red zone targets. Again, tight ends often end up being, within those 1-2 yards. If the run game gets stuffed, play action, leak the tight end out to the flat. It's where you'll potentially pick up those sort of extra points for the touchdowns. That would be my suggestion. As you say, it's an interesting one with the QBs, because fantasy has changed the way people look at it. Whereas, statistically, you go, that's a great stat game for a QB, 250 yards, 2 touchdowns, kept the ball well, didn't make any mistakes. Then you look at fantasy and go, oh, he only scored 15 points. What's the point of that?
I think one of the big things for me, especially with someone like a Jared Goff, is when you're on a team that is so good on offense that they put up lots of points. I avoid someone like a Jared Goff, because a lot of those points, especially when you see them in big scoring games with a team like say the Lions, it's running backs. They run the ball a lot more. That's why when it comes to like someone like a Baltimore, I very rarely will draft, say, Flowers, because although he's the starting wide receiver in the Ravens, they're a run first team. So to me, he becomes a lot more boom or bust depending on how they're playing, and what they actually need, especially if someone like the Ravens, they're not running the ball well, they have to go in the air. And that's why you then see the likes of Mark Andrews tends to do quite well in those situations, because he is the big guy to aim for. But a lot of the times, I think this is why when we've seen sort of the evolution of fantasy football in terms of the reliance on, the less reliance on a passing quarterback and more reliance on a rushing quarterback. That's why the likes of Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts are all Jalen Daniels are all high picks now, because they're the ones that are doing it on the ground and in the air. Whereas someone like a Matt Stafford, although he is currently, I think stats wise, is the number 1 quarterback in the league by stats, you're not going to pick him fantasy wise, because although he does make throws, a lot of the efforts, I mean, he's renowned for being an interception king anyway, so he's always going to lose points that way. But again, he relies quite heavily in terms of his scoring points on Kyren Williams. So that's why I would prefer to have a Kyren Williams in there than I would a Matt Stafford. So it's just basing it off that really, and looking at how teams are designed, and then using that. I think there's probably a few players where you could, that like you can just stick both a quarterback and a wide receiver in, and they're both going to score big, because that's just how it is. And I think
usually that's your Burrow Chase stack,
or like maybe sort of probably someone like a Caleb Williams, a Dunze, the way that's developing, that might be a stack that you're looking at, because he throws to him a lot, but also their big plays or their touchdowns or their X, Y, Z. So I think it's looking at the state of how teams play. And I think this is where you can become, this is where you need to sort of move away from like, well, how tough is the game, more and more looking at who do they throw to, who do they target, because you can be up against the number 1 defense in the league on both passing and rushing, but you're going to have to pass it to someone. So you need to work out who's he going to pass it to, and they are the ones to play. And that's how sort of, I suppose, is the next level, especially when you start getting to the more molecular level of fantasy football. But
yeah, when and that's a lot of that, and I think we mentioned that in the first episode. Fantasy football in the UK, it's still a bit of fun. I know there are players who, and they're not disputing that, but there are players who take it very seriously and can earn money through it through Fantasy Game Day and other ways. But in the States, that molecular, granular level is so far advanced because it is such a market for the betting, and
there's a lot of money on the line in
there's a
some leagues as
lot of
well.
money on the line on
Yeah.
just half points here, there, and everywhere. So the in-depth analysis, and if you're on social media, you'll see them all over the place, and the start sit-em groups and all those sorts of people. Like, don't you have a job? No, they don't. That is what they do. They sit and analyze it because people need to know, because from some bizarre way, the way that it happens, that money on the Saturday and Sunday on league games and fantasy games, a lot of money passes through the Vegas hands, which is why you'll hear a lot on fantasy football about the Vegas lines, because Vegas sets the over-unders and the favorites and all those sorts of things about fantasy. And yeah, a lot of money is passed on there. So although we take it a little bit seriously, but it just adds to our enjoyment of the NFL.
Yeah.
The in-depth, molecular, real nitty-gritty of, you should be playing, you look at it, as you say, you should be playing Mahomes against Baltimore this week, because even though Baltimore have a very good defense, he's going to score because he's going to have to be flushed out. So therefore, he's probably going to score quite well on his feet, and he's going to have to escape, etc., etc. Whereas you wouldn't play Goff, because if he does get pressured against, from the Browns defense, he's not a mobile quarterback. He's not going to score you those extra points on the ground.
Well, from what I've seen from him this year, he's turned into. There's a running joke between Lions fans, where he's called Jared Vick, and when he gets his 3 yards rush in a game, yeah, I prefer Jared Wheels, but Jared Vick is apparently the one that gets used. And he's looked a bit Jared Vick these last few days, running wise, not anything else wise.
No other connotations we'd like to suggest there at all.
Yeah. But
which is why I like that sneaky one, what you were just mentioned there, though. I like the Herbert call of playing him in, because his scrambling and running ability has been something that's been understated on the Chargers for the last few years. And I think, as you say, Harbaugh is kind of going, this guy's pretty good. Maybe we should let him kind of do his stuff a little bit, and he's given him a little bit of free reign. Whereas I think before, Herbert has been, you've got a bomb of an arm, we're going to use that and nothing else. Now, I think Harbaugh has kind of gone, hang on, he can move it around a bit and you can give us a little bit on the ground. So let's give him a little bit of leeway. So yeah, I think he's picking up a few extra points that he hasn't done in previous seasons, and people are starting to go, and an arm like that, running game like that, although obviously now it's a little bit hammered with losing Najee there, but Herbert's starting to become a favourite.
Yeah. Right. What we'll do just before we leave you, we're just going to go through. I just thought we'd have a quick look at the AAW League, which we did do an episode on the hurdle line, and we should all be quite embarrassed of ourselves right now, because the team that doesn't have an owner.
Don't. Do you know how horrible it is to put this in every week?
The team that doesn't have an owner is currently the only team that has a perfect record.
Wow. That might change this week, because they do have James Conner as their starting running back.
But they do, yeah. We may need to switch that up, because that's not really fair. But
however, they do still have a pretty stonking lineup.
Yeah. I mean, they're currently on points. They're still down to beat Fletch, who they're playing this week. But obviously, Fletch has not taken Lamb out of his lineup yet. So
I haven't yet. I'm doing it now.
Now that we mention it, yeah.
Other, I suppose, notable game matchups this week. You've got me versus Meg this week. So just to add to, if anyone watched the podcast yesterday or has listened to the podcast, will have heard me and Meg having a little bit of a tiff.
Nice.
So that is now going to carry on into this week, with me currently the favourite to win that game. And another is obviously, Gary, you're playing Tom this week.
Yes,
who's
I've actually
currently
managed to.
2-1.
Yeah, I've managed to actually put a tight end in this week, which doesn't help
Wow.
me last week getting absolutely smashed because having a complete gap in your schedule and a complete missing point scoring position didn't help one way or the other. So hopefully I'll be a little
Well,
closer this
If you
week.
didn't have so many bloody running backs,
Well, I know, but I'm now struggling to do
well,
anything about that. And
on that very same thing, I was up against Tom last week. I didn't take Xavier Worthy out as I should have done. CD Lamb is in my roster, and as you just said there, I didn't take CD Lamb out even. By the time it got round to taking Xavier Worthy out or trying to replace him with someone, no one was left on my team or my bench had played. So I couldn't do anything about it. Still won the game without those two players picking up any points because I had the Vikings defense. So, ladies and gentlemen, I promise you, I know
defense wins championships.
I know that we just kind of let them happen at the very end of the game, but sometimes your kicker or your defense does help, right? It does help. They do help.
kickers are people too.
Kickers are people too.
Brilliant. Well, that was great. Obviously, it's not a very long episode. Hopefully, we will be back next week with a little bit more and provide a bit more sort of analysis and a bit more chatter about other things than just starters and sitters. Again, if you want to go follow us all on Twitter and either laud us for our brilliance or have a go at
mock us for our absolute.
Then obviously go and do that over on the socials, which are in the links below.
Yep.
Sorry, in the buttons below. Again, follow the AAW network on all the different links and different things, and join the Discord for another place to mock us or laud us with our lovely genius decisions.
And if anyone wants to actually talk to me about the other kinds of fantasies, I've burnt myself up now. I'm ready to talk about them. You can find me on my socials as well. So
yeah, maybe keep that to Twitter.
That's definitely a Discord channel discussion.
Yeah. I need to age verify a few people on that one.
Brilliant. Yeah. Speak to you guys next week.
Yes, Sam. Nice one, guys. Have a great weekend.
I'll see you when I'm divorced next week, by the way.